take the firearms first and then go to court. We have to do something very decisive. Number one, you can take the guns away immediately from people that you can adjudge easily are mentally ill, like this guy. You know, the police saw that he was the problem. They didn't take any guns away. Now, that could have been policing. I think they should have taken them away anyway, whether they had the right or not. A lot of times, by the time you go to court, it takes so long to go to court to get the due process procedures. I like taking the guns early, like in this crazy man's case that just took place in Florida. But take the guns first, go through due process second.
In a nation divided, unity is rare, especially on gun rights. For decades, Americans have fiercely debated the balance between personal freedom and public safety, with the Supreme Court often split along ideological lines. But sometimes, history takes an unexpected turn. On October 31, 2000, the Supreme Court delivered a unanimous 9-0 ruling that stunned the country and caught even seasoned legal experts off guard. The decision was not just news, it was a seismic event. This wasn't a typical split. Every justice, liberal and conservative, spoke with one voice. Their agreement sent a powerful message about the clarity of the issue at hand. The decision sent shockwaves from the White House to local town halls, sparking urgent conversations in living rooms, city councils, and state legislatures across America. Why such consensus? The legal question was so clear, so rooted in constitutional text and history, that it transcended ideology. The justices found common ground in the very foundation of American law. The case, United States versus Himani, asked the court to weigh individual rights against federal authority in a new context. The question, can the federal government strip someone of their Second Amendment rights simply for using marijuana, even if it's legal in their state and they're not high at the time? It's a dilemma at the intersection of evolving state laws and long-standing federal statutes. The court's answer, clear and direct, was no. The justices ruled that mere marijuana use, without evidence of impairment or criminal intent, cannot justify a blanket ban on gun ownership. The ruling redefines a decades-old federal law, impacting millions of Americans, gun owners, medical marijuana patients, and anyone caught between conflicting state and federal rules. Gun rights advocates call it a landmark victory. They see it as a reaffirmation of constitutional protections and a check on federal overreach. Gun control supporters, however, warn it opens a dangerous loophole, making it harder to keep firearms out of potentially risky hands. The 9-0 vote makes it hard to argue against. Legal analysts say such unanimity is almost unheard of in cases touching the Second Amendment. This wasn't about all guns or all drugs, it was a specific case with sweeping consequences, setting a precedent that will echo for years. The nation is now forced to reckon with what this means for the future of gun rights, federal power, and the ever-shifting landscape of American law. What was this case really about? At first glance, it might seem like just another legal battle, but it delves deep into the intersection of federal law, state rights, and individual freedoms. At its core, this case revolved around a federal law making it a felony for anyone using controlled substances to possess a firearm. This law has far-reaching implications for many Americans. Ali Daniel Hemeny, a Texas man using marijuana legally under state law, was charged for owning a handgun. His situation highlights the conflict between state and federal regulations. His lawyers argued, should responsible marijuana users lose their constitutional rights, even if they're not dangerous? This question challenges the balance between public safety and personal liberty. The government insisted drug use, even legal, increases risk and justifies restriction. They argued that the potential for impaired judgment necessitates such laws. The Supreme Court had to apply the Bruin test. Is there a historical tradition of such gun regulation? This test examines whether similar laws existed in the past. If the government wants to restrict gun rights, it must show a similar law existed when the Second Amendment was written. This historical context is crucial for the court's decision. The battle shifted from public safety to history. The focus was no longer just on modern-day implications, but on the original intent of the Founding Fathers. Was there ever a tradition of disarming marijuana users, or anyone for mere substance use? This question required a deep dive into historical records and legal precedents. The answer would decide the fate of millions. The implications of this case extend far beyond one individual, potentially affecting countless Americans. The court's ruling would set a new national standard. This decision could redefine the relationship between state laws, federal regulations, and individual rights. The arguments revealed two visions of America. The government argued public safety comes first. Substance use impairs judgment, so restricting gun rights is common sense. They pointed to old laws disarming drunkards and the mentally ill, claiming marijuana users fit that tradition. Himani's team countered. Millions use marijuana responsibly under state law. Stripping their rights is federal overreach. They found no history of disarming people for mere drug use, only for violent acts or active intoxication. Substances like opium were common in the founding era, yet users weren't disarmed. The real question: should rights depend on lifestyle choices or only on proven danger? The court had to decide if the government's analogy held up. The answer would reshape the boundary between liberty and safety. The stakes couldn't be higher. The scale of this ruling is massive. It's not just a technical legal decision, it's a turning point that touches the lives of millions of Americans in ways both obvious and subtle. Over 50 million Americans use marijuana each year, nearly 85 million own guns. These numbers reveal just how deeply both gun ownership and marijuana use are woven into the fabric of American society, crossing age, region, and political lines. For many, gun ownership is a core right, a symbol of personal freedom and security. For others, marijuana is a legal, state-sanctioned choice for wellness, recreation, or relief from pain. Before this ruling, millions faced a legal paradox. Use marijuana legally in your state, and you risk federal felony charges for simply owning a gun. The law forced people to choose between their health, their rights, and their peace of mind. The federal background check system denied countless gun sales for drug use, second only to felony convictions. Many were caught off guard, unaware that a legal purchase at a dispensary could cost them their Second Amendment rights. The Supreme Court's decision directly impacts tens of millions, from veterans using medical cannabis to recreational users in states where it's legal. It's a change that brings relief, hope, and new possibilities. Now they no longer have to choose between their rights and their lifestyle. Americans can finally exercise both freedoms without fear of prosecution or losing access to either. The 9-0 ruling didn't just answer a legal question, it changed daily life for a huge part of the country. Communities are now grappling with what this means for safety, responsibility, and personal liberty. The intersection of gun rights and marijuana use is now fundamentally different. What was once a gray area is now a new chapter in American law and culture. The legal landscape has shifted overnight, opening the door to a future where rights and choices are no longer at odds. The court had to look back in time. Would the founders have disarmed marijuana users? The government argued yes, comparing today's users to dangerous people like drunkards, but Hemany's team, and the justices, found no evidence of disarming people for substance use alone. Early American laws punished misuse of guns while intoxicated, not mere status as a user. Substances like opium and laudanum were common, yet users kept their rights. The founders targeted dangerous acts, not lifestyles. The government's historical analogy fell apart. The unanimous court concluded, there's no founding-era precedent for disarming sober, law-abiding citizens for off-duty conduct. The government failed the history test. This case didn't appear out of nowhere. Years of legal battles set the stage, especially in the conservative Fifth Circuit, which twice ruled the federal ban unconstitutional for marijuana users. Other courts disagreed, creating a split that demanded Supreme Court resolution. The issue gained national attention when Hunter Biden was convicted under the same law, highlighting its broad reach. The DOJ faced criticism for its legal strategy, accused of picking Hemany to sway the court. But the justices focused on the constitutional question, not personalities. The unanimous decision was about history and rights, not politics. The court unified the law for the entire country. The legal and political landscape will never be the same. The ruling is a turning point in the gun rights debate. The 9-0 ruling is just the beginning. The federal law banning gun ownership for marijuana users is now defunct. Unless active danger can be proven, Congress faces pressure. Gun control advocates want new, targeted laws. Others push for full marijuana legalization to resolve the conflict. States are reacting fast, some celebrating, others scrambling to maintain restrictions. Expect new legal battles at the state level. The decision forces a national conversation. What does responsible gun ownership mean in a changing society? The debate over guns isn't over, it's sharper than ever. Americans must now decide, how do we balance freedom and safety? The Supreme Court has set the terms. The next chapter is up to us.